budgetary allocation should the National Treasury convince Parliament to cause budgetary cuts of nearly 200 billion shillings, which the Treasury says may be necessary should members of Parliament effect changes to the Finance Bill 2024. In a letter to the Clerk of the National Assembly, CS Professor Njuguna Ndung'u has enumerated several cuts, many of them affecting social services and funds that directly impact students, medical interns and junior secondary school interns that are to be employed as permanent and pensionable teachers. Safin Acheng Oma reports.
Despite having gotten the lion's share of the budgetary allocations for the financial year 2024-2025, the education sector is listed among sectors on the chopping board. CS Njuguna Ndung'u's letter dated June 19th recommends the slashing of the budgetary allocation for both the school feeding program and school infrastructural developments by about a half, leaving 1.2 billion shillings and 1.6 billion shillings respectively to be spent by schools. The chair of the National Assembly Budget and Appropriations Committee, Ndindi Nyoro, has lamented over the fate of 46,000 JSS intern teachers after Treasury recommended that 18.9 billion shillings allocated to TSC for their conversion to permanent and pensionable terms be deferred.
I am sure with the same energy that we are speaking either for or against, we will also explain to Kenyans, the JSS teachers, I am sure those who will be voting against their confirmation to PNP, we will also explain to them, Honorable Speaker. Those who will be voting against the increment, Honorable Speaker, of employing 20,000 more teachers will have an ample time to explain to the teachers of this country, Honorable Speaker.
The budget cuts will also affect a number of independent offices, commissions and institutions. The Executive Office of the President could lose up to 451 million shillings out of the 5.1 billion it was allocated. State House, which is separately funded, could lose about 500 million shillings. Internal security is targeted for a 2 billion shillings cut meant for security operations, while the Department of Defense stands to lose 7.75 billion shillings that had been set for operations and modernization financing. While quoting sections of the Public Finance Management Act, Professor Ndung'u in his letter noted that should the Finance Bill 2024 be approved as proposed by the National Treasury, the National Assembly can proceed with considering the Appropriations Bill of 2024, which distributes a budget of 3.99 trillion shillings. However, based on proposed changes that were announced by Kenya Kwanza Parliamentary Group at State House on Tuesday, the National Treasury says it stares at a revenue shortfall of 200 billion shillings, thus necessitating the expenditure cuts.
Honorable Speaker, it is important for members to note that in case there is a downfall in terms of the revenues by the proposed 200 billion that was to be raised in the Finance Bill, Honorable Speaker, then the government and the National Treasury and the Budget Committee is also prepared for that scenario.
It could be preemptive, that I want to agree with the Honorable Pio. It is preempting debate, but the Honorable Njuguna Ndung'u, CS Njuguna Ndung'u, is not engaging in debate. This is an advisory opinion to us, reminding us that we need to abide by the Constitution and by our own laws.
Parliament stands to lose 3.1 billion shillings, 2 billion shillings for the judiciary, while counties could lose 5 billion shillings, leaving them at 395 billion shillings, despite the protracted negotiations that preceded the allocation of 400 billion shillings in equitable share. The cuts will affect key projects like construction of roads, markets, and the elderly and vulnerable households will lose up to 5.5 billion shillings in cuts from cash transfers. The National Government Affirmative Action Fund, managed by women representatives, could lose up to 1.5 billion shillings. The constituency NGCDF allocations are also set to be reduced by 15 billion shillings, while the last mile connectivity program for constituencies is set to lose 14.5 billion shillings. The Ministry of Energy could also lose 4.5 billion shillings in the national last mile connectivity initiatives.
NGCDF will be reducing by 15 billion shillings, which is 50 million per constituency, Honorable Speaker. The monies we appropriated for electricity, 50 million per constituency, Honorable Speaker, by again not giving the National Treasury the power for more revenue-raising measures, the 50 million per constituency will be disappearing today, Honorable Speaker.
CS Ndungu's letter accounts for proposed budget cuts of 178 billion shillings, pledging to provide further list by this Friday on where 21.6 billion shillings more will be cut from to account for the projected revenue gap of 200 billion shillings. Safin Acheng Oma, Citizen